So I'm Jay Sedgwick. Thank you very much for spending your Wednesday with Jay. Yeah, you knew I was going to get that in, didn't you, Courtney? So Wednesday with Jay is a little hashtag that I'm trying to start, and so far only 2 people have ever hashtagged Wednesday with Jay. So we're working on that. I work for WebbMason Marketing, and I'm here today because I really wanted to share some free content and share the word about content marketing for our friends in the banking community. I'd like to also introduce some of our other fellow people on the panel, but I'll give it their opportunity or give them the chance to go ahead and introduce themselves. So Courtney, we'll keep it in-house. Go ahead and introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll turn it over to Rob and Jeanette.
Yes, my name is Courtney Scott. I am a senior account specialist here at WebbMason Marketing, and I currently reside in Baltimore, Maryland. I've been with the company for about 3 years, 3.5, and I look forward to talking to everyone.
That's great. Courtney, we like to joke that you're very young because I like to joke that I'm very old. So you may hear me mention things to Courtney like, hey, are you going to prom this year? Or, have you filled out your college applications? She doesn't like that, but I like to tease her because I'm well past that. Jeanette, ladies first, go ahead and introduce yourself for us.
Hi, I'm really delighted to be here today. My name is Janet Lonsdale, and I'm the owner of The Red Stairs, which is a content development company. We work mostly with B2B companies in the US and with companies who are targeting the US market. We offer everything from campaign planning to creative to execution, and we create a variety of materials that support sales and marketing functions. Examples of that would be things like websites, case studies, white papers, logging campaigns, and all sorts of other things.
Great.
Oh, we're in Denver.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, one of the nice things about working through Zoom is you don't have to be in DC or Baltimore to join us. So you can join us from all over the country today. Rob, how about you?
Hi there. Good afternoon, everybody. Rob Bergfeld. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at ICBA. At ICBA, I lead the marketing communications departments, which is ultimately overseeing the execution and strategy and execution of what we like to embody, which is results-driven strategies, right? So ultimately all about enhancing the value and reputation of community banks in the eyes of consumers, the media, policymakers, and of course, to small businesses as well. Yeah, I like to think of my job in 2 ways, right? On one hand, I'm working on behalf of the membership to make sure that we're clearly articulating and proving the value of membership. And on the other hand, making sure that we're, carrying the torch for the industry itself to consumers, again, small businesses, media, policymakers, et cetera. I have been with ICBA for a little less than a year. It's amazing to say I've never been in the office. I started in March, right as all of this started. So I have either been in this room or in my attic. So that is what I know. I'm here in DC, ironically very close to the offices, but with no benefit. So happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us, and Jeanette, I appreciate you guys making time. You've helped me tremendously prepare for this and get this ready, and thank you for our participants and our attendees that are joining. Courtney, before we tee up our first question for the panelists, would you go ahead and start with our first poll question, please?
Yes. So I'm going to launch it now. I'm going to read it and then launch it. So in December 2019, Zoom reported the maximum number of daily meeting participants was approximately 10 million participants daily. By the end of March 2020, how many daily meeting participants were there? And it is now active. So this is a chance for you all to win one of those hats or a phone sanitizer as well, right?
Yeah, we've got the phone sanitizer, the limited hats, and the very exclusive insulated coffee tumbler that no one has. These are brand new. No one's ever even heard of them.
Gotcha. Okay, it looks like we have 5. Cool. So I'll give it a couple more seconds. And it's ended. Perfect. So 2 people voted 230 million, which isn't the right answer. The correct answer is 200 million. So let's share those results. And we're good.
Great. So congratulations to our winner. I'm not sure if you know who it is. If you guessed 200 million, if you want to send something in the chat, that way we can identify you and embarrass you and make sure you get a wonderful gift. So let's get started. I want to start with Jeanette first. And Jeanette, quite simply, what is content marketing?
You know, that's a great question, because it's actually a really large subject. But from my perspective, or from the way I think about it, content marketing is a way to communicate with your audiences in a non-salesy, non-abrasive manner. It gives you the opportunity to talk about your products and your services in a way that is useful, valuable, and interesting to those people. And it really helps you build relationships. I think one of the real misconceptions I come across about content marketing is that it's just words and pretty much just blogs. It's not. Content marketing is all of the different items you use to communicate in this way. So it could be photographs, it could be social media posts, it could be white papers, and so on. Video scripts count. It's got more to do with the way the material is created and its intent, rather than what the actual tactic or vehicle is.
Okay, well, that makes perfect sense. And Rob, same question. What does content marketing mean to you?
I think to echo Jeanette, it's really, simply how do you provide value to your customers, right? Do they have questions or concerns that you could help them answer? There's a lot of talk about, the concept of things like inbound marketing and so forth, but marketing was long sort of an outbound exercise, right? Which is, how do you get your content in front of people when you're connecting? But the dynamics have changed in which, people are looking for immediate answers and immediate returns. And so are you positioning the great things that you have to say and the great answers to the questions that they have in the places that they look, right? So it's fundamentally, we talk about also digital first and what have you, but it's just about where people are, right? And making sure that you're, being methodical, being deliberate about how your content is distributed and gets in front of your customers or your prospective customers, in the right place with the right content at the right time. That's, it's nothing new. It's just sort of the delivery and the distribution has really changed, and fundamentally the expectations of the end user.
Well, so that leads me into a follow-up question for everybody then. Rob, with what you just said, is it different today than it was 20 years ago or 40 years ago or 100 years ago? Is content marketing different, or just the vehicles we use to share it? What's different about it today than say, in the past 50 to 100 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the expectations, as I just mentioned, really changed, right? From a consumer perspective, I think, it's no longer, hey, I've got a question about, home loans. So let me go walk on down to the branch and see what type of literature I can pick up, right? It's fundamentally about, at the ease of a couple clicks or using your phones, how do you get an answer to a question with immediacy? So the value exchange, I don't think has changed, right? We are in a position to be the expert on a topic. I think the means have changed, and the way that we achieve those means has changed, and to be more efficient. And that's where technology, I think, really comes into play, not just as a channel, but as a delivery mechanism, which is, how can we make sure that we're doing smart distribution of the answers to certain questions, whether that's email, a chat bot, directory listings, a website. It's really just about getting, optimal content in the place where people are looking for answers.
Okay. All right. So, Jeanette, I totally agree with what Rob is saying. Can you help me understand maybe how it's different today than it was? If Rob helped me understand and shares the way right? Maybe what's changed in terms of your writing and the content that you create today as opposed to maybe 10, 20 years ago?
Well, I think really the change, the two things that Rob mentioned that stand out are the technology and the expectations. Those have absolutely changed. We expect to get answers immediately. No matter what you want to know, you go straight to Google and you expect it to be there. And if you go to a page and the wrong information is there, it's very annoying. If you Google for red boots and you get to a page that tells you about all kinds of shoes, then you're going to be, unhappy about it. So I think that's one thing. But, in many ways, it hasn't changed. And, I am old enough that my background is in print. And, we're still, even then, we were still delivering answers and information. And if you go back, way back in history to 1900, Michelin tires brought out the Michelin Guide. The Michelin Guide was an extraordinary piece of content marketing. It solved a business problem. It explained to car owners that they didn't just have to go for a local picnic, that they could get this book and it would, provide them with, information for hungry explorers to travel around the country. And it explained things. It wasn't just restaurants. It actually explained things to them, like how to change a tire, how to refuel your vehicle, and stuff like that. So, wow. It's been going on a long time, and these items solve business problems. There's another product which was around the same time, Jello. They had this product that nobody was buying because nobody knew how to use it. So they created a recipe book to teach their customers how to use it. A recipe book is not selling Jello, but it is showing people what they do and how to use it. So content through all the years, has been a way to explain and expand and demonstrate, what you can do with a product or service that a company is producing. Just to give you one more example, because I'm Irish, the Guinness Book of Records was a piece of content marketing from the 1950s. And that was to help people, when they're sitting in a pub arguing over whatever kind of facts and figures, the CEO of Guinness decided, I can put together a book that helps people solve that particular problem. And my goodness, they're going to drink more Guinness while they're doing it.
That's fantastic. So I have two problems with that section. Number one, FedEx ruined it for all of us because now we have this immediacy. Our expectations are overnight. So shame on you, FedEx. And shame on you, Google, for ruining every bar argument and every pub argument and every challenging piece of conversation we've ever had. Now we have phones and we can prove who's right. I hate that about technology right now. Mm-hmm. So, Courtney, I would like you to queue up another poll question, and then we're going to change topics real quick.
So I actually have an audience question that won't be specifically in the poll. So if you all have one or two words that describes a or challenge the banking industry is currently dealing with, please leave that in the chat area and we would like to discuss that. But I do want to open that up to the panelists if you want to share any ideas of some challenges that you think the industry is currently facing.
Sure. I think that the biggest challenge right now is loyalty. I mean, there are so many opportunities to change accounts. There are so many disruptors in the market that loyalty might just be the number one challenge that I think community banks and regional banks are facing.
Yeah, I would echo that and maybe just use the phrase differentiation, right? Mm-hmm. As things pivot to more digital, right? How do you how do you deliver digitally with the same sort of relationship focus that is traditionally differentiated community and regional banks, right, from the big guys? And there are ways that are, and there are folks that are really doing that, but I think articulating that and showcasing that and proving that model, and I think a lot of it is probably based on some of what we're talking about today, which is, instead of just creating content and sitting on your hands and hoping people find it, being more proactive with it and getting it in front of the people that may or may not know about what makes a community bank different, right? And it's a real opportunity, but at the same time, it's a challenge for sure.
Mhm.
Kathy mentioned a good one, non-banks such as Venmo, Cash App, and things like that. So that was a good one. Thank you, Kathy.
What's Venmo? I'm just
Um,
kidding. I'm just kidding.
I thought this was going to be more dynamic between Courtney and Jay about old and young.
Yeah, no. My kids implore me to get these apps, and there's probably 4 or 5 of them that we don't need to plug. But yeah, I know that. Courtney, any other questions from our attendees or from the field?
Not that I see, but if you all want to leave any questions for the panelists, definitely.
So I think consolidation is one that worries me. I've had this fear since I was in college, which was a long time ago, and we joked that eventually there's going to be 5 corporations on the planet, right? There'll be a financial firm, there'll be an entertainment firm, there'll be a legal firm. All the services that we need, they're all just going to get rolled up and consolidated. I'm a person that loves alternatives. I love choices. I love the freedom to make lots of different decisions, and so consolidation scares me. Selfishly, as a account executive for a marketing firm, when my community banks get gobbled up by other banks, it's lost opportunity to work with friends, and it's lost opportunity to serve clients. So that scares me as well. Courtney, did you want to throw up the other poll and see if we can give away some more prizes?
Yep, we have a fun question. So this poll is, while we are thinking, what percentage of our brains do we use? So watching that.
Well, good question. Didn't Einstein say that humans only use like 13% or 20% or something like that of their brain power over their entire life? Some crazy minuscule percentage of brain matter.
It is, and I'd really like to say that top number, that 71%, is me. I'm gonna go with that, and I'm gonna stick with it.
Okay, all right. I like you're passionate. You have an opinion.
I may be fooling myself, but I'm okay with that.
No problem. So 3 people actually selected correct. So 35%.
Wow. So we have 3 prizes to give away. I have to give away 3 hats. Give away 3 hats. Outstanding. So let's jump into our next question, which is not this one. That was the last question, which is question number 2. Why should bankers use content marketing? So I want to start with Rob first this time. Rob, why should bankers use content marketing?
Well, I mean, I think, I'll start by saying I think they are using content marketing, right? It's about sort of how deliberate and how thoughtful, we can be in utilizing it, right? And, I think when push comes to shove, it's the only way to compete in the sense of providing value and finding and addressing the needs of your customers. One of the things that, you mentioned what Google has done to all of us. I think it was in 2019, for the first time, the majority of Google search results were what is known as a 0-click result, right? And what that means is, you put in something and Google has an answer for you and doesn't want you necessarily to go elsewhere. Now, of course, they'll list some websites and some listings and so forth, but they're trying to answer that question within that environment. And they're doing that from a variety of different sources. So there's an opportunity for us to play on that field. It's not just about getting people to your website. It's not just about getting somebody to open an email. It's about getting the information that you guys are the subject matter expert on in front of the individual that's looking for the product and service at that time. So again, I think it's the means to distribute it effectively and also efficiently, right? Efficiency is, is something that partially has been advanced by technology, but is also something that has just changed as, the channels have evolved, right? So, one of the things that I used to do was make sure that every time we were producing a podcast or a blog post or having an interview, we could maximize the number of channels that would ultimately serve. That hour we'd take interviewing a subject matter expert, that made a blog post, a video, a podcast, an email series, some automation that we built in that maybe could inform a knowledge base, but it was all packaged in that one item. This wasn't, we're going to take that 1 hour and create one thing. How many things can you get it to create and to justify that, just to deliver some ROI? So, that's where I think, the real opportunity is, because I think it feels insurmountable to say, well, I can't do another thing, or I can't do another thing. I can't, start a TikTok, or I can't, start, I'm going to dip my toe in this new channel or in that new channel. But if you work on being as efficient as possible and maximizing the distribution of the value that you bring, you can deliver some significant returns. So that's, I think, why you do it, because you need to be where your customers are fundamentally, and how you do it is just to be as efficient and as measurable as you possibly can.
Rob, that's really, really good. And I want to simplify it, because I'm a foodie and I constantly think about food, and we're probably affecting some people in their lunch hour. Is it like using leftovers, right? So you come up with a great meal. You and your family prepare this awesome dinner. And of course, you've prepared too much. So you want to be thinking strategically throughout the week, how else can we repurpose the protein? How else can we repurpose the starch? Similar with content marketing, you don't want to have it be one and done. You want to repurpose it through multiple channels and multiple areas to help your bank.
That's right. And in fact, I'll take it a step further, and I'm probably, this is probably going to resonate with Jeanette too, because this is a pretty tried and true content marketing strategy. But there's something called upcycling, right? Which is finding your very best performing post currently. So not, creating something brand new out of the ether, because much of what we create is fundamentally evergreen. If you have sort of FAQs, or if you have, questions about certain products and services, what is already performing, right? And how do you continue to evolve that and continue to invest resources on that? It's very complex to figure out exactly what is going to work, but are you maximizing what is already working, right? So you're looking at your traffic, you're looking at your leads generated, you're looking at everything that is working in a particular post, and you're creating variations of that, you're refining that, and you're continuing to invest in that asset, which is something that unfortunately not enough of us do. I frankly would love to do more of that myself, but that is a real strategy that is, to your point, Jay, making a little bit more of the leftovers and maybe making more of what was a main course.
You said it way better than I did. I just had to bring it back to food, because that's where my brain goes. And Courtney, we've talked about upcycling before. Whenever I go to spin class, the instructor constantly tells me, okay, now we're going, no, that's not what he meant. That's not what he, oh, sorry, Courtney. All right. So I wrote down upcycling, and I think that's really good. And I want to hear, Jeanette, I'll phrase it a little bit differently. If we know why banks should do it, and Rob explained the importance of it, how can we tell if it's working? Like, how do we know if we're being successful at using content marketing?
I want to just kind of go back to what Rob said, because I think that finding your stories above the channel is such an interesting approach to things, because it helps you make the most of every story, and it helps you make the most of your budget. And let's face it, nobody has, the endless deep pockets. We always have budgets we're trying to make the most of. So if you can come up with the stories and come up with what's valuable, and then find ways to tell that story in different channels and in different ways, that's really valuable. And I think the other point I would like to add to that is, the world has changed a little bit, and it changed quite dramatically, but it changed before COVID. We got to the point, or we are at the point where people want to discover the solutions for themselves. They're going out there and they're saying, let me find what I want. Let me make the choice. I am the buyer and I want to be empowered. Historically, our way of talking to people as businesses was, here's what I want to show you. Here's what I want to tell you about. So that dramatic change actually makes content marketing much more important. And the reason why people need it now is because they need to fill that gap. You need to give people enough information to explore and find their own solutions. So kind of to move on to the question, which was, I think, how do you know it's working?
Yeah, how can we tell if it's being effective?
And I think it's very easy to look at, say, the stats from your website and say, oh, geez, we're only getting, so many views on our website, or we're only getting, half of these blog posts aren't performing, or whatever item you're actually looking at. But the truth is that is not, while they are measurements, they may not be the right measurements. And the reason I say that is because you have to understand what your goal was in the first place. If your goal was to, for example, have more conversions, and you've got a blog out there and you're looking at your blog and you're saying, hey, my blog is not performing. I'm not getting all these conversions. Well, you're not going to, because a blog is the wrong vehicle to get you conversions. So you really have to, when you set up your campaigns, you have to know what you're going for and what your goals are. And you have to know why you're choosing specific tactics. And then you have to create those tactics in a way that will give you the results that you're looking for. And then you can go measure them and say, is it working or is it not? Otherwise, you're, to go back to your food analogy, you're saying, have we eaten healthily this week? Well, maybe not, because the big feast we made on Sunday wasn't a healthy meal and we've been eating leftovers all week. So, you've really got to think about things and start thinking about the results you need from the start. And I don't think that's new in content marketing, and it's not new in business. This is a tried and tested way to approach all kinds of business needs and decisions. Have I answered that question?
Yeah, no, that's great. So we can't just throw it out there, look at the analytics and check the stats and say, we're doing a great job. We need to actually know, one of the things that you've shared with me is we need to know our audience first. And then once we know our audience, what story are we trying to tell? To Rob's point, we want to get the most out of the story, but we also have to know what the story is and who it's for, right? And then we can start to decide, has it been effective? It's not just about clicks. It's not just about the cold numbers. I think that might be something, to get back to the conversation earlier, something that's changed a little bit. I think marketing's getting softer and it's getting a little bit more humanized and it's getting a little bit more personal. Technology certainly allows for that, but also the times that we're in, right? The last couple of years have been really hard. So I think it's the messaging is reflective in that.
Mm-hmm. And that point about knowing your market and knowing who you're talking to, different things will resonate with different people. Maybe millennials are interested in, or younger people are interested in their first mortgage. They're interested in putting their kids through college and so on. And older people are thinking about, is my retirement going to be good enough? What do I need to do today to make a difference? So we're interested in very different information. So if you send me, okay, not quite banking, but if you send me information about sports, I'm never going to read it. I'm not going to read about golf or anything.
Right.
I'm just not interested in it. Send me something about something I'm interested in, and I will absolutely sit down and read it. And that has to be applied to, the material that banks are sending out to you. You have to know who you're talking to, why you're talking to them, what you want them to take away from it. And I guess and actually one more point, it is said from research that it takes at least 10 pieces of content to persuade someone to do anything. And that isn't necessarily persuading them to buy. That could just be persuading them to click something to go to the next stage of a sales funnel. Because your blogs and a lot of content marketing, your sales funnel is this shape. Your content marketing is at the very top of it. It's designed to bring in, it's a fishing net. It's bringing in lots of new people.
Yeah, and Rob, you're nodding your head. Would you agree that that's even not just in the banking industry, but that's true across the board?
Yeah, no question. I mean, I think we get wrapped around the axle, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody, of being focused exclusively on the conversion, and where you can connect those dots, awesome, right? And where you can, one caveat to all of that is, you should really only compare yourself to yourself, right? To your organization, right? And if you can if you can advance the number of conversions, let's say off of a blog post or off of a social media campaign or what have you, that is better than the last and shows improvement, then that's really what your goal is and what you're getting after. Now, I think to Jeanette's point in terms of the funnel, I think there's also, opportunity and value in, bringing people further down the funnel. Have you created a relationship with them? Have they returned to your website? That has value. And we know it's a sort of a multi-channel, especially for these larger type of products and services, with a significant sales cycle or journey. But you can give a score to somebody moving further down that funnel and giving some credit to that. I also think it's important to think outside of even just the marketing and sales funnel too. Like, what about customer satisfaction or retention or areas like that? Now it's harder to sort of say, hey, content marketing was responsible for, but it's an interesting approach as you're starting to ask questions about where this individual engaged with us. Look at that individual's engagement with content, without content, and did those differ? Because this is all part of especially in this digital environment, right? This is part of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was an actual conversation or whether it was a chat bot that was fundamentally a bot that was driven off of content, or an email that we received, that is where the value is conveyed and delivered. So I think, we can think a little bit more creatively about how we score and give value to content marketing, but it is important fundamentally to give it to, prescribe it some value, because, otherwise you're just throwing everything out in the air and hoping for the best and depending on anecdotes. And we know anecdotes fly as far as the boardroom. So,
well, it's interesting you say that, because 30 years ago when I first started, that's what we had to do. We didn't have the technology today to do all the tracking. We couldn't prove the ROI. We could make an assumption that this action created this result, but there was no way to directly track it. Now we have so many opportunities to be sticky with all kinds of technology and all kinds of different tools that we'll talk about later. So yeah, I think we're living in an era now where we have to take advantage of the data that we have, and we have to take advantage of the technology. And to Jeanette's point, we need to come up with that benchmark first. What does success look like for us?
And I think one of the things that Rob just touched on that's so important is that content marketing is only one of the things you should be doing. It's part of a larger marketing strategy. It's not the only thing you do, and it has to. It's a piece of a puzzle that has a lot of other things going on.
That's
Yeah,
right. To that point, I mean, this is one of the things that I had written down that I failed to bring up, which is, hey, if you run a paid search campaign, right, on Google, and you identify a set of keywords, and now as part of your landing page, you're offering up, you can do A/B testing of like, pure focus on the conversion versus conversion / positive and valuable content. What is that adding to that experience, and how is that impacting the efficiency or the efficacy of that campaign itself? So again, it's just figuring out how you can, make sure you're maximizing the value of the content that you're creating.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I would agree with you 100% on that. Courtney, let's go ahead and have a little bit more fun. If you want to open up a chat question or pull up a poll question, and then we'll transition into another section.
Perfect. This is one of my favorite questions because I always like to hear about new places. So if you could travel at any moment or anywhere at this moment, drop work, drop everything, where would you go? I vote an island.
An island? Just any island?
Just drop me off somewhere safe.
Does it have to be near the equator, or can it be like in the Hudson Bay?
I'll say Aruba.
Okay, there we go. Now you're getting specific. I like that.
Yeah. How about you?
Me? All right. So I've never been to Bali, never been to Asia. I've never been lots of places, which is boring, and we'll talk about that in some other webinar. But I would go to Bali, and I want to stay. Money is no object. I want to stay at one of those places you see in all the brochures where you have a little villa or a little hut, and it's on the water on stilts, and they've got the glass floor, and you can just walk out your door and dive into the sea, I guess, or the bay, a lagoon. I'm not sure what it is, but I've seen those things, and I know they exist. I would like to go there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Before the snow, but so it'd have to be like at midnight tonight before we get dumped on with another 8 inches of snow here in Baltimore.
Jeanette and Rob, how about you guys?
Oh, I used to live in Indonesia for a while. It
Oh,
was,
wow. So interesting. That's so interesting with her accent and her stories.
I think if I had to go somewhere, I think I would like to go home to Ireland, and it's been a tough year, and I'd like to see family.
Nice.
That would be the first flight I'd book. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take whatever I can get, right? If it was, if I could pick out of a hat, or if I could pick right now and say, get me there, I'd probably, I don't know, like Maldives or something. I mean, just to do something crazy. But again, I'd take, anywhere remotely warm at this point, especially as we're inching on late February. This is where it starts to get to the, all right, I'm over this.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun fact about Courtney, she's very humble and she won't say this, but she is a bit of a world traveler and she loves to do exotic destinations. And she doesn't just go to the beach, or she doesn't just go to California or Florida. She travels, and I'm very jealous. At least once a year, Courtney was taking a really big trip, and typically Europe, right? Court would be Europe. Yeah. So the pandemic put a pause, not a stop, put a pause on that for now. But we'll get you back overseas as soon as we can.
And Missy in the audience, she said somewhere warm as well. So
That's it. The most exotic we got was somewhere warm. This is an easy crowd. So Missy, for somewhere warm, we'll get you a thermos. You get a hot insulated coffee thermos. So that's fantastic. Did we want to send a trivia question out, or we want to wait till the end?
I'll send one more out. We have two more left. So this next question is, how many connections does the average CEO have on LinkedIn? So I'm launching that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to end that. And it is 930 is the correct answer. So we have two people that won for that.
All right, so again, we got a hat left, and we got a coffee thermos left. So we got to find out who the winners were, and we'll send them some of their prizes. So I want to give something that people can use and something people can leave with. So Jeanette, I'll come back to you. Give me a couple of ideas or a couple of bullet points. How can bankers use what we're talking about today as part of their overall strategy?
I think because of what's happened in the last year, because of COVID, because the traffic is probably down in banks, I think it's really important to, if you haven't already done it, to divert some funding to your content marketing and to providing people with the answers they need online. And I would imagine that many banks are suffering with, overflowing customer service calls, and things that would normally have been handled in branch are now overwhelming your switchboards. So, I think content marketing is a way to answer those frequently asked questions, and that is where I would start. So even if you haven't got an absolute strategy now, start by answering the regular questions, and at the same time start to get to know your audience a bit better. Do some audience research, create some audience personas for your main demographics, and start to figure out what's going to resonate with them. What do they really need? One of the things that is so concerning about community banks is that as we become more digital, the geography and the location of these banks is almost becoming secondary to the technology and the marketing they're using. Now, content marketing will only provide part of the answer, but it's a really important part of the answer. And one of the reasons it's so important is because it isn't this salesy approach. It's much more educational. It's much softer. And it's, you're advising on paper, on screen. You're advising on screen. And I think that if you are a bank that is doing nothing or doing very little or is stuck, those are the few places I would begin.
That's a great, it's a great answer. And I think stuck is some of the questions that Courtney and I get a lot in the office are, what do we do first? Help us get started.
Yeah.
Give us the confidence to make that first step. And so, Rob, getting back to our title of today's webinar, how can we educate bankers about a digital first world? Where should they begin?
Well, I think you mentioned it, and Jeanette, I think you certainly touched on it as well, which is, where is the data that exists almost already from your customers, right? So, you mentioned the switchboards, right? The switchboards is like fertile ground, right? And there's often this disconnect between like, a call center and marketing, but content marketing and a call center, or, an inbox, a customer service inbox, or, it's a great place to originate. Where are the questions out there that we're fielding? And then you can sort of counter that with some pure digital research, right? And anything from as simple as like Google Trends, there's obviously a lot of like keyword research, but around like Moz, or what are some of the other tools out there? Answer the Public is another fun one that I always like to look at in sort of how you construct certain questions. But like the idea is really simple, right? Is, what are your customers or prospective customers asking, and how are they asking it, and how are you delivering a response? And sometimes it's like, when we're talking about what we're crafting from a blog post, it's your title, and this is a microcosm of what we're trying to do here, or it's symbolic of it, but the title is not about being pithy or just fun. It's about being discovered. Is it an answer to a question, right? Fundamentally. And that's what we're trying to get at. And it's a great place to start, is figure out what are the questions that that people are asking, start to deliver it. And really your first step is like, if we're talking about goals and objectives, the creation of that piece of content, the first goal and objective might very well be to cut down the number of calls that are coming over to the call center. That's fine, right? And that's really got, significant value. And then the secondary notion to that is like, now you're driving new business because other people are out there asking the same question without that brand specificity, right? So you're really killing two birds with one stone, and that's, that type of efficiency, I think, is a great place to start. And again, it's really just about figuring out where there's volume, how you can meet those needs at scale.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. So we're up against it. I wanted to go at 50 minutes. We got a little bit of a late start. Let's recap real quick. So in a nutshell, guys, what is our number one takeaway, or what is our big aha that we want the people attending and the people watching to take home? Courtney, I'll put you on the spot. And Courtney, what's something that you think you've learned, or something that we've talked about today, or you've even volunteered that you'd like people to remember?
The importance of making your story known, but also sticking to that story, and not, I think Robin and Jeanette said, not being focused on like the past content, but like if something's really doing good in this moment, push that, make sure it's your story and on brand.
I like that. I like that on brand. Jeanette, how about you?
One thing I'm not sure if I mentioned it or not, but I think having a internal champion, no matter how you create this material, or whether it's outsourced or how you do it, you have to have a senior level internal champion who is responsible for this marketing and willing to make sure that it happens and make sure that the time is set aside. And then apart from that, I think it's to remember that content marketing specifically is non-salesy. It's you don't go for the hard sell. It takes time to put it together and to see a result. And it's one of the pieces of a complete marketing strategy. It's not the whole answer. It's part of an answer.
Not that there's anything wrong with salespeople. We love salespeople. All three of you love salespeople. There's nothing wrong with that. But we've been saying not salesy a little bit today. I'm starting to get a little insecure.
But it's a different piece, isn't it? Salespeople you still need salespeople, because content marketing is just one piece.
Thank goodness.
Go out there and have sales. You have to have direct mail. You have to have advertising, and so on.
No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, I did.
No, it's just fine. I'm just easy. So I like that, and thank you for that. So Rob, how about you? One takeaway for everybody.
I think it's about, I love what Jeanette said, and I'm going to make note of that, of sort of somebody being a champion. And I think that champion, from a functional perspective, has to be, sort of the steward and the connector within your organization, right? So it's not marketing sits in their glass tower and sort of, comes up with their strategies. Where else can we, learn about our customers, about what they're looking for, how we can provide value? One of the things that, I've done in previous roles is, really just, develop personas around not just who our customers are, but who are our best customers, right?
Sure.
What do they look at? What did they look like? How can we find more people like that? How can we deliver value to those individuals? And if we can sort of identify that segment and really focus there, the returns are much higher. So, it's obviously continued testing, continued measurement, but it's sort of looking in the cracks and the crevices and figuring out where is the valuable data that will allow you to create content that will be seen and well received, whether it's on your website, in a pamphlet, in an email, on Google. Let's just make sure that we're optimizing.
That's great. And two things that were mentioned earlier for me, I really love the recipe book idea that you mentioned. I know it's an old-fashioned idea, but it's so smart even for today. If WebbMason has this giant playbook, wouldn't it be helpful if there was a recipe book that brought that together? And Rob, the packaging multiple pieces of content and using them as leftovers, I mean, that's so valuable. We do that with our clients today. I'm sure that's a strategy that we would share with all the bankers. So I think that's outstanding. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I know we ran a little bit long. I know we lost some folks along the way. Please stay tuned. We're going to go ahead and plug our next webinar in this series. Thank you to Jeanette and to Rob and to Courtney for taking care of everything. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.